Within the endless sands of the Kyzyl Kum desert, the Khorezm oasis is stretched, which conceals many secrets and mysteries. Sources of the era of the Arab conquest call Khorezm the land of 1,000 fortresses. Indeed, archaeologists have discovered many ancient settlements on this territory which once had been powerful fortresses and royal palaces. Thousands of fortresses spread over vast arid steppes and as gigantic statues keep the secrets of ancient Khorezm. Even today, the grandeur and scale of the ruins amaze with their magnificence and power. The first mentions about Khorezm, which means sunny land, are found in the Behistun inscription of Darius I. The sacred book of Zoroastrians, the Avesta, states that Khorezm is one of the first and best countries created by the supreme god Ahura Mazda. It was exactly here that the unique culture of the Khorezmians was originated, comparable in importance to Egypt and Babylon, and which had left behind an invaluable heritage. Khorezm attracted attention and interest of numerous states of the East up to the great Roman Empire in the West. In order to conquer this rich country praised in legends, the Achaemenid kings and Alexander the Great made their campaigns. The plundering offensives of the mighty Hephthalites, the colonization and domination of the powerful Seljukids, the victorious wars with the Karakites in the Middle Ages testify to the enormous authority of Khorezm. Nourishing with the mountain glaciers of the Pamir, the great Amudarya River at that time as today carried its waters for 1,000 kilometers to form a fertile oasis in the lower reaches at the outskirts of the Kyzyl Kum desert. Seasonal irrigation associated with river floods, the Aral Sea coast rich in fish and fowl and endless pastures has made this land the cradle of a unique culture that has left behind grandiose monuments, lost cities and gigantic fortresses. Until the 30s of the 20th century, when began excavations which were carried out by the Khorezm Archaeological and Ethnographic Expedition under the leadership of Tolstov. Very little information was known about this ancient country, but the results of the excavation exceeded all the wildest expectations. Tolstov made a real scientific discovery, which is now considered one of the greatest achievements of world archaeology. He discovered and studied an ancient and unique civilization completely unknown before, which is comparable only with the discovery of Troy or the Cretan civilization. The long-term research carried out in Khorezm, as well as the study of the available written sources, showed that there are 64 archaeological monuments in this region, called cities. Historical information has been preserved about 32 of them. Archaeological studies were carried out on 20 sites, which confirmed the references in the works of the medieval authors. Today, the ancient cities have largely fallen into ruins, but archaeologists continue to study them. In the 1st century BC, Central Asia became part of the Kushan Empire. During the reign of Kanishka, the Kushan Empire became a powerful, strong state, acting on the world stage on an equal right with Rome, Parthia, and China of their time. The remarkable architectural monuments and sculptures that appeared at this time have survived until our days. On the outskirts of the oasis, new fortifications characteristic of the Kushan era were erected. Among them are the Garukala monument in the lower reaches of the Chermenyap and the Devkeskan Kala fortress in the Usturt steppes. As a result of the development of irrigation structures, fortified cities and fortresses such as Ayaz Kala, Kyzyl Kala, Kargashin Kala, Toprak Kala, Bolshaya Guldursun, and Kichik Kirgis appear. Among these monuments, Toprak Kala deserves special attention. Toprak Kala is located a few kilometers south of the Sultan Ubays Ridge, in close proximity to the Nukus-Turtkul Highway. It is a vast ruin that still rises to a height of over 20 meters above the surrounding agricultural land. An ancient systems of canals brought water here from the now dry branch of the Ox River. Its name can be translated as Earthen Fortress. The best Khorezm architects, who were famous for their high skill, were engaged in the construction of this settlement. It's hard to believe, but a lot of Toprak Kala structures have survived to this day, despite the low quality of building materials at that distant time. The builders used large mud bricks, clay, small stones, and river sand. As a result of their work, the inhabitants of the settlement had warm and dry dwellings that could withstand all unfavorable weather conditions. Toprak Kala served as the residence of the Khorezmian kings. The fortress was built in the form of rectangles stretched from north to south, and with a dimension of 500 to 350 meters. The fortifications consisted of straight walls with archery galleries, rectangular towers spaced at equal intervals along the flanks, and a larger tower in the northeastern corner. Two-story defensive galleries were built inside the walls. The lower gallery served for hidden movement and rest of the soldiers, and the upper one was for shooting. The city was defended through the arrow-shaped loopholes. The height of the walls reached 14 meters. The only entrance to the fortress was built in the center of the southern wall. The city gates were considered the most vulnerable and weakest point in the defense. For this reason, the builders of Toprak Kala allocated an entrance to a special fortification with a passage in the form of a cranked labyrinth. The most interesting buildings were located in the northern part of Toprak Kala, which occupied almost a third of the city's territory. The northeastern corner was set aside for a bazaar or city square. The northwestern corner was occupied by the citadel, which was fortified, in fact, reserved city with an area of 3.2 hectares. In the northwest corner, there was a huge three-tower royal palace built on a brick platform 12 meters high. It was a building that had no analogues either in Khorezm or in Central Asia. Toprak Qal'a is known not only for its bizarre architecture, but also for the unique finds of ancient Khorezm writing. Documents written in the ancient Khorezm language were found in 4 rooms in the southeastern part of the palace. A total of 116 documents were found, written in black ink on wooden tablets and on leather scrolls. In contrast to Egyptian pyramids and palaces of Babylon, the castles of ancient Khorezm were built without stone, because there was no limestone and facet in the neighborhood, and the wood of Tuga Tango didn't fit for making locks and boards. But the Khorezmians evidently had unique building secrets, which let raise very stable buildings from mud bricks and clay. Packing collected in the desert was strengthening streak in brickwork and bank sand, absorbing rainwater, provided the dryness inside the building. Toprak Qal'a was made from millions of big brick blocks sized 40 to 40 to 12 centimeter. All wheels of the state were brought into making and delivery to the place of the building. Archaeologists, having studied original trademarks on each batch of bricks, had concluded in that time Khorezm state included no less 15 provinces with a population of about 50,000 people in each. Ayaz Qal'a is one of the most impressive fortresses in Khorezm. There are in fact not one but 3 fortresses clustered together on and around a prominent hill at the eastern end of the Sultan Ubayd's range. The earliest is Ayaz Qal'a I, located on the top of the hill, one of the forts along the edge of the Kyzyl Kum desert, providing defense against nomad raids and the Saka lands of the Sirdarya Delta to the north. Ayaz Qal'a I has an area of 2.7 hectares and is rectangular in plan. The walls are well preserved up to 10 meters in height with regularly spaced towers, double-story arches, galleries and arrow slits that can still be seen clearly. The lower gallery was entered at ground level next to the gate. The galleries would have provided cover and ease of movement for the many archers needed to defend the fort. The arched walls of the lower galleries are still preserved in places, and the visitor can't walk along inside them. Construction began in the 4th century BCE when the galleried enclosure was built. Later, in the 3rd century BCE, rounded towers were added. The complex gateway is typical of Khorezmian frontier fortresses. The approach lies parallel to the southeast wall, where invaders would be vulnerable to attack from above. A massive gateway defended by 2 rectangular towers leads into a small rectangular chamber overlooked on all sides by high walls from which bowmen could shoot at the enemy should the first gate be breached. A right angle turn towards the second gate leading directly into the fort would break the force of a charge through the first breach. The fortress is thought to have continued in use up to around the 1st century CE, although it may have provided refuge for local inhabitants well into the early medieval period. Ayaz too is a small, roughly oval fortress linked by a steep ramp to an open settlement down on the plain to the west. The fort dates to medieval times. It was probably founded in the Afrigid period, sometime around the late 7th to early 8th centuries CE. The walls are built of mud brick on a paxa socle, and the tops of the walls were protected by battlements with arrow slits in the crenellations. The interior structures are well preserved, and the interior surface, in fact, the roof of the rooms. Ayaz III is a fortified enclosure in the shape of a parallelogram sited on the open plain below Ayaz I. The enclosure has a double wall defended by rectangular towers around the whole perimeter and an elaborate gateway in the middle of the western wall. The site is about 5 hectares in area, and the enclosure walls date to the 1st, 2nd centuries CE, while the monumental building in the northeast corner may have an earlier foundation date around the 5th, 4th centuries BCE. We know from historical monuments that the Khorezm Empire retained its greatness up to the Mongol invasion. Studying the ruins of ancient structures, we can imagine the life of cities, the rapid flourishing of crafts and trade, the noticeable development of art, a network of large irrigation structures, a system of fortresses and dozens of caravanserais. Among the numerous structures in Khorezm, only half have been explored so far. The chronicle of the dead cities of this state is replete with undeciphered pages that will surely be read sooner or later. Perhaps the history of ancient Khorezm will eventually reveal all its secrets.